Fellow Ghanaians, a very good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for joining us here on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. It's Thursday, the 3rd day of February 2022, and certainly not the 3rd day of February 1957, because 65 years ago, our guest was born. Many of you would know him. In fact, all of you would know him as one who's been leading a lot of the government charge in Parliament. But today, our focus is not on the usual politicking. So this is actually a special edition of Upfront on the JoyNews channel. We would want to understand who he is beyond what you see in Parliament and what you have known him to be because of his stay in Parliament. In fact, this is his 7th time in Parliament. I do not know if he's going to bow out, but currently the longest serving member of Parliament. If he comes back, he would be the longest serving ever in Ghana's Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening on Upfront on the JoyNews channel, we are privileged to have the Majority Leader of Parliament and Member of Parliament for Swami, the Honourable Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu, who's celebrating his birthday today. Thank you very much for joining us, Honourable Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu.
Thank you for having me.
And happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Acknowledged with sincere appreciation.
65 looks good on you, 65 years. I've just been thinking where I was at that time. I wasn't born, probably asking where my parents were, but it looks good on you. Was the secret?
Well, we try to live normal life, no excesses. I don't smoke. I drink casually, especially when I have to take some food, usually wine, little to spare me on to eat healthy.
So do you get to drink casually anytime you're eating, or it's not anytime?
Occasional. Then I try also to do some physical exercises. I do some walking, especially over the weekends. These days, I'm not able to do as much, but whenever I find myself in Kumasi, I try to do it. When I was living elsewhere, close to the mountains, I used to climb up, walk up at weekends to Pediase, do some physical exercises up there, and then walk down. But it's been quite a while since last year. In the lead up to the elections, I had to stop. And
why did you have to stop in the lead up to the elections?
Because I had to be most of the time in the constituency. So those days I would be doing the physical exercises in Kumasi. But after the elections, I've not had time to do that. Unfortunately, where I've moved to prevents me from doing the walkabouts. And again, I think the work schedule has also been compounded, such that these days I'm leaving my office around 12 midnight, and you're coming back. You're trying to come back around 6.
How do you cope with that? You're growing, leaving your office at midnight. I mean, even for the young ones like me seated here, that'll be difficult for me.
That indeed is a monumental task, but because it's your responsibility, you try to live by that, and you endeavor to accomplish whatever task that comes before you. So that is what I've been trying to do, and I hope to God that I'm able to do so to the best of my ability.
Are there times when you look at it and probably think, "Oh, I wish I were not in this job, so I could probably save myself all the stress of having to leave office late and wake up very early in the morning"?
Well, sometimes, especially when increasingly these days, you have some people who have constituted themselves to a cabal. Whatever you say, they twist it and then use it against you. Not the best. Maybe looking back, 1997, since that time I've been continuously in Parliament. It didn't used to be like that. But I think we're now developing a group of people who have very acid tongues and very, they have acerbic language.
Who are these group of people you're referring to?
I mean, people who may be against you for whatever reason. Sometimes,
in Parliament or outside Parliament?
Sometimes even in Parliament and outside Parliament. Whatever you say, they twist it. I remember a few weeks back, I had granted an interview to one of your sister stations. And I alluded to what I have been doing because somebody had said that I have not been building consensus in Parliament, and I was relating to what I have been doing in Parliament as a majority leader, which has not been seen before. And I was challenging anybody to say in leadership that he had done what I have been doing. And then I related to the culmination of events, me leading the charge for us in leadership, that's both sides of the house, to have a meeting with the president. And the president meeting us and breaking bread with us in Jubilee House. The next time it got twisted that I had said that I had arranged a secret meeting between myself and the minority leader with the president. No such thing. I came to explain it, and then the same story was twisted again, that I have confirmed that I had secret meetings, arranged secret meetings between the president and Haruna Idrisu, the minority leader. And you wonder how people can come with such concoctions. And then people then feed on those misinformations. Without reading the text, they rather, descend on you and scavenge on you. As I'm saying, it didn't used to be like that at all. And sometimes, you look at it and you question whether it's worth going on that path. You don't respond, and because you don't respond, people then say, oh, because it's not responded, then the story must be true.
Okay.
If you have to respond, you have on daily basis to be responding to the untruths that people churn about you. But I take solace in the words of Professor Buzia, the former Prime Minister of Ghana, who said, to be a successful politician in Africa, you must have a very large stomach to take in all manner of stuff, the good and the bad.
Talking about sometimes asking yourself whether it's worth it. One of your colleagues, then longest-serving member of Parliament, after 7 terms, decided to, leave Parliament. Alban Bagbin, currently Speaker. This is your 7th term since 1997. Are you considering, probably stepping aside after this term, so you could maybe rest and not have to deal with all these challenges?
I've sounded that from the rooftops, and not too many people are satisfied with the decision that I've taken, and encouraging me that I should contest again. I'm not minded to contest again. And increasingly these days, because of what I've said and because of what my wife is doing, especially in Ashanti region, people seem to think that I'm preparing her to take over from me. No such thing at all. She has her own foundation. And every year she goes to the constituency and she's engaged in some medical screening of the people there. Indeed, late last year, she was not even in the constituency. She was at the Kumasi Central Prison, where she took charge of the inmates of the prison, including the prison officers and their families as well. Altogether, I think they attended to more than 2,000 people in the Kumasi Central Prison, including not only the medical screening, but providing appropriate medication to them, and also feeding them. Because of these things that she does, people seem to think that I'm preparing her for to take over from me.
Would you support her if she were to say, I want to take over from you?
She's the one urging me strongly to leave.
If I
had listened to her and not to the party, perhaps I wouldn't even be here this time.
So when you say people are telling you not to step down, your wife is urging you to leave. I mean, I'm very young in marriage, but one of my former CEOs told me something years ago when he said, you can ask me every question, but don't ask me a question about marriage. If you intend to do, let me answer you before you ask. They're always right. And my 6 years of marriage has confirmed that sometimes it's very good to listen to what our wives say. She said you shouldn't go. So why are you undecided about it?
I've not said I'm undecided. I said I've made a bold decision and I've sounded from the rooftops already, which means that the decision has been made.
So you're not contesting?
I'm not contesting. That's for the avoidance of doubt.
So this is your last term in Parliament?
To the best of my knowledge.
I see. But you know, talking about this, and I mean, watching you afar as a parliamentary correspondent and, you know, following you on all the things you said, you're one of those who have actually talked about the need to have institutional memory. And I remember at the time when you would make reference to Senator Kennedy, for instance, and talk about the number of times he's been in the US Senate and how it helps in the development of their democracy. Why would you want to step aside now?
Well, a time comes that one must decide to bow out when the applause is loudest. Indeed, 2 years ago when Nancy Pelosi visited Ghana, and she came in the company of one of the astute politicians, black politicians in the United States at the time, John Lewis, who transitioned just a year after they came here. And Lewis had been in Parliament for continuously for close to 40 years. At the time they came, she had done 38 years. And Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Reps in the US, referred to him as the person with the institutional memory, and she frequently touches base with him when, to quote her, when she's in trouble or undecided. So it's good for the growth of parliamentary democracy. So you try to be around, you try to assist others, you try to assist the institution in growing. But it comes a time that you must also bow out. Because in all these years, I've not had quality time with my family. And I remember my wife used to be in the UK, and every year I was endeavoring to visit 4 times in the year. You go, you touch base, and sometimes by the time you get there, you are being recalled back home. So we didn't have much time with her, for which reason she decided to relocate to Ghana. Even that, as I'm saying, you spend long hours in Parliament, you spend long hours in the office, attending to colleagues, attending to referrals, attending to yourself, attending to business that must be transacted in the House. And in the process, even when we adjourn the House, you spend not less than 5-6 hours here. People come to you, you must have time with your colleagues who come to you. Sometimes they engage you in some conversations, Parliament related, other times relating to themselves and their families and their constituencies. You must have ears to listen to them. And sometimes relating to how to develop them in Parliament. So you try to do all these things. And increasingly, I'm also getting oversaddled with activities from without. You just heard me mention that this morning I've been chairing a CPA, a Commonwealth Parliamentary Association working group to amend the constitution of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. I'm not a lawyer, but by maybe my own institutional memory that I have, the knowledge that by God's grace I've acquired, the experience that I've acquired, and some native wisdom that by my training I've also acquired. Oftentimes at such fora, when it comes to dealing with legalities, they refer them to me. And I had the Constitutional Amendment Committee. I've been made the chairman of that working group. So I was having this meeting this morning And it began at 10 o'clock, lasted for more than 2 hours. So we just went through with that. Until recently, I was the local chairman of what we call APNAC, the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption.
Sure.
I was also the president of the African region, APNAC. And at the world level, I was the vice president of what we call the parent body, which we call GOPAC, the Global Organization of Parliamentarians Against Corruption. At the IPU, there are just 4 committees at the Inter-Parliamentary Union. I used to be a chairman of one of the committees.
Okay.
So you are dealing with all these things at the same time. And you have to attend to parliamentary duties in Ghana as well. You are not working in parliament alone. Within the party, I'm a member of the steering committee, of the National Executive Committee, of the National Council. You are a cabinet minister, you are a leader of government business, you are the majority leader, you are a member of parliament for Swami. You combine all these things and there's very little space for personal endeavors.
Okay.
And as I'm saying, I think a time comes in the life of a person to bow out and bow out gracefully.
And you think the time is now?
I think so.
And as you leave, I mean, thinking of leaving Parliament, would you say you're going to be, having been in Parliament right from the second Parliament of this Republic, looking at this Parliament, would you be leaving Parliament in a better place?
Well, I would say that we're trying our best. I keep saying that the Parliament, and researchers have also come up with these revelations, that the Parliament, in the Fourth Republic, the second Parliament comes out as the best Parliament that we've had. And unfortunately, down the lane, it appeared things were going a bit haywire.
Okay.
Attributable, if you ask me, to the internal organizations of the various political parties. I think the parties are not taking effective charge of the democratic processes as far as elections are concerned, especially election of parliamentary candidates.
Okay.
The central parties abandon their responsibilities and leave it to the constituency, the polling station executives, as we call them in MPP. The NDC call their own the branch executives. And the central parties absorb themselves. I think that it shouldn't really be the case. They should assume some responsibility.
Okay.
Because you see, down there, many of the people, there are some of them who really are looking at the quality of materials to make some selection from. There are also many others who are looking for their palms to be greased. So, it is like, we trouble man cry in Hunuda. We na ba no amami bibi kakra nti won metro ba ma no. It's not assessing the competence of the person. What value addition that person can bring to bear on democratic governance, improving the work of Parliament as an institution, and also improving on the work of the member of Parliament. He or she is not looking at that. He's looking at the size of the envelope that may be passed on to him. So that's the difficulty that increasingly we're having. How do we improve the system? Is it the case that the parties may have to go further downstream to let, in that case, all card-bearing members of the party participate in the voting? In which case, the thinking is that the seeds of corruption that we are sowing at that level will be cleaned up. Or is it the case that the parliamentary parties should assume greater responsibility in assessing their peers and letting those of them who have considerable merit progress without submitting them, having them to submit on termly basis to the determination of the constituency parties. Okay. What is the best way forward for us as a democracy? And I think there's a lot of room to improve the system. I keep talking about that. Otherwise, we may not be able to grow parliamentarians. And if you are not able to grow parliamentarians, you'll not be able to grow parliament to perform its responsibilities, especially the oversight responsibilities of the executive. Okay. And in that regard, democracy may be shortchanged.
And talking about Parliament, let's get into. I mean, today is your birthday. So
I thought you said we're not going to dwell on.
So we're moving away from it. We're going to do a few things. And I'm interested in one thing. Growing up, and we're coming to focusing on your growing up a lot more in detail. But growing up, did you ever have this ambition of wanting to get to Parliament?
I'm not sure. Sitting somewhere in the village, I didn't even know of Parliament. What I recollect, of Parliament and of government those days was, going into, at a very tender age, the young pioneers, okay. Elementary school. But then, not too long after we had been recruited into the Young Pioneers, I think Nkrumah's administration lost out, and with that collapsed that enterprise of recruiting pupils into the Young Pioneers. So that was maybe my baptism into it. But then later, it was the introduction of partisan politics once again after the overthrow of Nkrumah. And I remember people talking about Bedema. The people used to call Afrogbede. Yeah. And then Buzia's Progress Party. And Buzia was passing by my village, and we had wanted to go and see him. We had to walk those days, tender age. And I think at the time, I was less than 10 years. And was it? No, about 12 years. 12 years. About 12 years. And I had to walk about about 4 miles. Wow. To go and catch a glimpse of Dr. Buzia. We stood at a distance from the crowd. So we saw him on a platform. And Buzia, not a man of huge stature, but we were able to make him out. And we came back excited that we had seen Professor Buzia. Wow. So that was it. And that was my most remote connection with partisan politics. I didn't understand. And there was no aspiration at the time to be in Parliament at all. Okay.
Then fast forward to 96. I mean, someone was telling me a story of how in 1996, when you wanted to contest initially, you were impressed upon to allow the older persons to contest. Was that a case?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That was in 1992, okay, when we began. And at the time, there was a man that I was very close to. He was the owner of a sports paper, and he was called Raf Jebi. Okay. He had a sports paper that we wrote for. And because we were active in the establishment of the Dankwa Buzia Club, people had gotten to know us. And young as I was, because I was one of the lead figures when it came to talking to the crowds that assembled at KO Methodist School on Saturdays in the lead up to the formation of the New Patriotic Party. So my face was out there, and at the time people were afraid to come up. Okay. So it used to be one big Menshia constituency. So the elders of the party, that is the earlier party, PFP, had come to see me in the formation, the formative years of the formative days of the MPP, that they thought I should come and contest on the ticket of the MPP. That even at that time, late at that time, was not part of my thinking. But they were strongly urging me. So I said, well, if nobody came, I would do that. Then entered Dr. Adukufo, who had heard that I was gearing up for the position. So he called me one time and I went to his house. That was the first time I went to his house. I went in the company of Dr. Nani, who became the MP for Bantama. So when we went there, he expressed his intent to contest on the ticket of the Menchia constituency, and that he had heard that I was also lacing my boots for the same project. And I said, well, people were urging me, but I was not really resolved to do that. But if he was coming in, he was much more senior, much more experienced in life than I was. So if he wanted to contest, I would step aside for him. And I did so.
Okay.
Subsequently, for the Menchia constituency to be split up into two, into Menchia 1, Menchia 2. The Menchia 2 later came to be rechristened Old Tafo-Suame constituency. So when it came to be so divided up, the constituents then on the other side came to urge on me to come and contest for the other half of Menchia constituency. And just as I was thinking about that, Raf JB then approached to say that he wanted to go and contest. More or less, he had become my boss because I was writing for his paper. Yeah. And Raf was the regional manager of the then Texaco. Okay. So I stepped aside for him. He went into the primaries. Unfortunately, he lost the primaries to one Mrs. Redu, who emerged the candidate for the constituency. We worked with her to, campaign for her. Unfortunately, as you recollect, those days, the voting was not for the presidential candidate and the parliamentary candidate at the same time. Sure. We had that for the presidential candidate first. Yeah. So the voting was between Rawlings and Professor Edubwa. He was our candidate. And after the event, we all saw the things that had gone wrong. Because I, for instance, was mandated by the party to go and observe the elections beginning from beginning from Bekwai. So I went through Bekwai, Obuasi, Asokwa, Fomina, and ended up at New Edubiase. Okay. 5 constituencies I was charged to monitor. And I saw, what had gone wrong. I came back with my report to Kumasi about what had gone wrong. Reported, Edubwa, after voting in Accra, had come to Kumasi. Okay. And I went to report directly to him. That was how come we started writing what came to be known as the stolen verdict. It was the evidence I had brought to him that he said I should go back and then provide a better basis, a better analysis of what had gone on. So I went back to the constituencies to tabulate what had gone wrong. And as I said, that marked. And then the party then charged the other regions to do the same. So that was my responsibility. But I was saying that back to Suame constituency, the lady that we filled it, Mrs. Redu, when she went into when she was preparing for the contest, the party pulled out. Yeah. So the parliamentary elections we did not engage in. Come 1996, in the lead up to 1996, the woman wanted to contest again. But then our then regional vice chairperson was Lawyer Mie. And Lawyer Mie was from Suame. Okay. And he then appealed to me that he had heard that people were mentioning my name at Suame. He had risen to become the chairman of the Ghana Bar Association, the president of the Ghana Bar Association. And he said to me that he wanted to have that parliamentary experience as the icing on his cake, and that he wanted to do 1 term, maximum 2 terms, and hand over to me. Okay. He was very senior to me, and we're working together. I was at the time assisting at the regional office of the party. So I worked under him and Dr. Donko Fojua, who was the regional chairman, okay, and Lawyer Mayer was the vice chairman. So when he appealed, I couldn't go into a contest with him. So again, I pulled out for him, and he went into the contest and won against, say, Mrs. Redu. Okay. But at the time he was at the hospital, he was on admission at the time of the contest. Those days we had 8 wards. The wards we now call electoral areas. So we had 4 on the Tafo Road and 4 on the Swami Road. Lawyer won 12 out of the 16, because we had the wards plus the constituency executives, who numbered 8. So 8 ward representatives plus 8 of the constituency executives. They made up the electoral college. So Lawyer won 12 out of the 16, and Mrs. Redu won 4. He was taken sick, and then eventually he stepped aside, and there was another contest. This time not between me and Mrs. Redu. Mrs. Redu came to appeal to me to step aside for her. But the people were so much incensed against her for what she had done. That is why she lost out to Doyamie in 1996. In fact, that election, that primary was held in 1994. And so when she came appealing, people said they were not prepared to listen to her, that I should contest. The contest was between me and the most senior son of Mr. Kofi Gyamfi, okay, known as, affectionately called the Hartman, the owner of Nrom Hotel. I emerged triumphant this time with 11 votes for me and 5 votes for the son of Mr. Kofi Gyamfi, who was called Kwame Gyamfi. Unfortunately, he's transitioned. If I transitioned, I think 3 years or so after the contest, 3-4 years after the contest. Subsequently, in 2000, there was no contest. Somebody wanted to contest me, but he was found wanting, so there was no contest. 2004, no contest. 2008, no contest. 2012 was, I guess, when people came to contest me, and well, it proved to be, 2016 was when people came to contest me, but it proved to be an exercise in futility. 3 other contestants, and I think I mastered an overwhelming majority, and then entered 2016. But before then, I was a minority leader. Entered 2017 to be made the majority leader, okay, and 2020, no contest again, and so that's how
you're here. So let's look at Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu.
Yeah.
You know, the times people say, that's not his name. That's like his local name. That's like the name they probably call him at home, and that your name is Lawrence. Were you born Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu?
I was born Osei Kyei-Bonsu. My father is Kweku Kyei-Mensah. Okay. But my father was born on Anawukudai. So he used to be called Kweku Adai. Kweku Adai. So growing up into secondary school, in fact, elementary school, my senior cousin was the one who named me Lawrence Ade. Okay. It was the name I bore at, I think, was it class 2 or so, or class 3, up to secondary school level. Then we had a young man who came to my school, St. Peter's Secondary School, a Ga guy who was called Kwashi. He came to form a union, a student movement for African unity. And I think we were impressed by the knowledge, the Africanness of the man. So when I went there, I was inspired by Kwashi, and I changed my name. I wanted to change my name from the Adair Lawrence that I bore to Osei, using my maiden name, Osei Bonsu, and joining it up with my father's name, that is Kyei-Mensah.
Okay.
So that's how come I joined it up to Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. That is incorporating my father's name, Kyei-Mensah, and my own Osei Bonsu. Right. Okay. I was born on Sunday, 3rd February 1957. And so that is it. My grandmother used to call me Akumia. So at home, I was Bonsu Akumia.
Okay.
You know, that's just an accolade.
So you went to St. Peter's.
Yes, I did.
And you know, I speak to a lot of persons from the Ashanti region.
Yes.
Even when I was at the University of Cape Coast, I had a lot of friends some friends from the Ashanti who had come to us and said, "Oh, nanka mpese me kotek admission delay na me baha." So it's surprising to me that you left Kumasi, where there was Opokuwari and Prempeh, and went all the way to, St. Peter's.
A village boy.
Yes.
A village boy who didn't know much about St. Peter's. It was my senior cousin, the one that I spoke to about, who was, I think, about 6-7 years ahead of me, who went to Ahmadiyya Secondary School.
Okay.
And it was right in my common entrance, who suggested to me that I should, those days of common entrance examination, who said I should choose St. Peter's Secondary. I didn't even know St. Peter's Secondary. I had not heard of it before. But he was the one who said I should choose St. Peter's Secondary. Earlier on, at Form 2, and he had gone to Prempeh College.
Okay.
He had gone to Kumasi Academy.
Okay.
I think he was a year or two behind McMahon, our chairman. They were at Kumasi Academy. So he asked me to choose Kumasi Academy, which I did. At the time, Form 2, when I chose Kumasi Academy and passed, he was, I think, in Form 4 or so. Unfortunately, and he had bought everything for me to join him in Kumasi Academy. My father suffered multiple vicissitudes. Somebody went to burn his cocoa farm, and his old mummy truck, a Bedford truck, was involved in an accident and got burnt.
Oh, okay.
So I was barely there for a week or so when I had to be withdrawn. So I came back to elementary school at the instance of my Form 3 teacher, a Dagomba man called Mr. Mahama. And it's been to my regret that I've not been able to trace Mr. Mahama. But for Mr. Mahama, I would not have continued my education.
Really?
Yes, because I was shamefaced. I'd bid farewell to my colleagues in elementary school. That was Meko College in those days, we called them. And then I had to come back to elementary school. And I was not minded to go. I was full of shame. But Mr. Mahama was the one who came to my house. He followed me to my village and said to me that you are too young to do this. Because at the time I was about 11 years or so. I went to school very early at 5 years, and I was jumped on 2 occasions. I skipped 2 classes. So those days, completed elementary school, averagely, the average age was about 16 years. You enter school at 6 years, and the duration was 10 years. So before you came out, you would be 16 or above.
Yeah.
But then, because I entered very early at 5 and skipped 2 classes, by the time I completed elementary school, I was 13. So when I wrote the common entrance, I was 11. The man came to was more or less pleading with me that I should come back, which is what I did. The following year, Form 3, I couldn't write the exams again because my father had not really recovered. So I had to complete Form 4, and it was the Form 4, at Form 4 that I wrote the common entrance again and passed, this time to St. Peter's Secondary School.
Okay. But Mr. Mahama, you know his full name?
I think he was called John Mahama or so. A face registers boldly. I think he was called John Mahama. The face registers boldly. Unfortunately, we've not been able to locate him. Yes. Okay,
which means you've tried locating him.
I've tried locating him. The person who could have assisted me, a colleague of mine, Kwame Kwachi, unfortunately transitioned way back. The man taught us, and one personality that he taught is Mr. I guess you might have heard of Mr. Opombio. Opombio was a close associate of Ken Ohene-Japan.
Okay.
The two were together until I think they split up their enterprise. Ken went his way and Opombio went his own way. He was an importer he was a dealer in electricals.
Okay.
Yes. So that's where we find ourselves.
Great. Recently I heard you talking about football, but for then I probably wouldn't have known that the majority leader was interested in football. You love football, and you're interested in who becomes Black Stars coach.
Oh, I was at a radio station for normal interviews, and then they brought in this. Yes, in my earlier life, I told you I used to write sports.
Yes.
I really love sports, especially...
Did you at any time play football yourself?
I did. I was playing for the school team at university. I was playing for my hall.
Oh, really?
But I quit.
What position were you playing?
2-4.
So you either a sweeper or a fullback?
2-4.
Oh,
the sweepers are usually the 5 players, but 2 those days were fullbacks.
Yes, fullbacks.
And number 4 was halfback, we used to call them.
Yeah.
Right. So those were my positions. Occasionally, when I was playing for a local side, maybe I'll play number 5. So, but my favorite position was number 2. And so after school, I was also writing for many sports papers. Mr. Raf Jebis was called Soccer Scene. But I used to also write for this man, Kwesiamo. He had a paper, Star Soccer, I think. Star Soccer. And I was writing for Star Soccer. I was writing for Sport Superstar.
Okay.
Sport Superstar was owned by Osei Kofi.
Yeah.
And it was edited initially by Kobra Yeboah.
Oh, I see.
Yes. So I was writing a column for Sports Superstar.
So you loved writing. And you speak very well. I'm sure when you read the budget, you had the reviews. You went to Legon to do law, and then you stopped to go and read planning.
Well, I didn't initially stop to read planning. Same cousin was the one who urged me to come and read a course in architecture.
Okay.
So I left Legon to pursue a course in architecture. And the current chief executive of the Integrated Bauxite and Aluminium Company,
okay,
Ansa, Michael.
Michael Ansa.
Michael Ansa is my mate at Ken University.
I see.
At the School of Architecture. But then into second year, I dropped and went to pursue a course in planning. I thought architecture was too long. And and the drawings were too much for me.
Well, you didn't like
I didn't know anything about architecture until I got to Ken University. And I really saw that, no, I shouldn't have left Legon. But I had come and then I went into...
So why didn't you pursue the law again? Because you love law. You always make reference to the law.
Well, because of what I'm doing now. and you must immerse yourself in what you do. You know, read wide in order to be relevant. That's what I try to do. Yes. So I must say that leaving Legon has been to my eternal regret. However, I think I've made the best out of the situation. I had planned to leave. In fact, I should say we had planned, because another person who was with us is the former member of Parliament for Fomena, Ebu Bonsra.
Yes.
Abu Bonsra.
Yes.
He was also our mate.
Oh.
And Abu and I were the people who had decided that we were leaving architecture to pursue aggressive planning. On a nick of time, one lecturer called us and said he had heard that we wanted to do that. We shouldn't. That architecture is much more lucrative, much more rewarding than planning, so we should stay. I had made up my mind, so I left. Abu stayed.
Okay.
And then the good thing is that whenever I want to build a house, he is the one who decides for me.
Okay. So let's talk about your family. I mean, you've talked about how, you know, you brought in your wife, the sort of things she does in the constituency, but also, you know, the fact that she's been advising you, and finally you've decided to, you know, listen to her. When did you meet her? How did you meet her? I'm just curious. Now that it's your birthday, I want to know a few things.
Well, I met my wife. Was it? I think it was 2000. 2000 when we met. She was my agent.
Oh, okay. Agent where?
She was my agent at Wesco.
Okay.
Western College.
Okay.
She was a polling agent at Western College. I didn't even know her, but I ran into her. At the time, I had been brutally assaulted by the driver of Kuku Anyidoho's father.
Okay. Major General.
Major General Anokwenu. He was in Kumasi in charge of the northern sector at the time.
Major General Anyidoho.
Anyidoho, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyidoho. At the time, he was in charge of the northern sector.
Yeah.
And something had happened at Tafu. I'd gone to observe. I'd gone in the company of some journalists. And when the soldiers saw the journalists who were snapping pictures, they descended on them, including one particular girl who was holding a camera. And this particular person descended on the girl, you know, used the butt of the gun to knock the camera off the hands of the lady. You know, so I went appealing to him why he had done so. And he turned his anger on me.
Okay.
And hit my head with the butt of the gun and had several lacerations on my head. So blood started oozing. And people came in and, you know, confronted him. He moved quickly away. And then we reported the case to the Tafu police.
Let me just cut in at this
Whilst
point.
I was there.
We need to go for a quick break. This is Upfront on the JoyNews channel, and tonight we're joined by the Majority Leader, Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. When we return after these messages, he will tell us the continuation of that story. Very, very important. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Right, so welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on Upfront on the JoyNews channel. Honorable Osei Kyei-Mensah-Bonsu. So yes, you were telling us about how you had been assaulted, blood was oozing, people came over, and then what happened?
Well, I then drove to the Tafu police station to make a case. Because somebody then told me about the name of that person. One of the soldiers,
Okay.
who thought that his actions were unfortunate, mentioned the name. That is Sergeant Alasan. I still remember that name. So I had gone to the police station to make a case. It was whilst my statement was being taken that the then regional minister, Nuama Donko, who had apparently heard, drove to the police station, and you know, I had just finished the statement, and he saw blood still oozing, and I was drenched in blood. So he said, "Osei, that is not right that you know, there's so much bleeding and you are here." He put me forcefully, you know, in his vehicle and drove me to Komfo Anokye with Major General Anyidoho in Tao and took me to Kofanochi, where I had stitches on my head done for me, and he took me to my house to have some rest. After a while, it happened in the afternoon. So after a while, around 5, I said, no, let me go and see what was happening on the ground. After taking some rest, some 2-hour rest in the house. So it was when I went there. The first station that I went was Wesco. And there was this young lady there, you know, representing my cause. And I spoke to her briefly. And, on the spur of the moment, she appealed to me. But we never had any engagement until she was training as a teacher.
Okay.
And I think she finished, went to teach, and then had come to Legon and visited me. I think they had come to, as students, had come to Parliament. But she made the effort to see me, and that was how it began.
That was how it began.
That's how it began.
Because when you saw her the first time, she appealed to you. So this time around, you had to act fast.
You are telling me.
Okay, you're agreeing with me there. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Oh, I see. And
so that was 2001, I think. It was 2001, 2002, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have to wrapping it up because you have to go to Parliament and get a few things done. But
right.
We know you're playing football. If you're not in Parliament, you like music?
I like music.
Okay, what genre of music do you like? Who are your favorite musicians?
Local scene, I'm a traditionalist, so locally I so much admire the music of Nana Ampadu.
Okay.
Ampadu of old, you know. I like the music of KJC, and lately, you know, the successor bands like Amachi the Day. I also admire the three songs of what's the name? Kojontwi.
Kojontwi, yeah.
Kojontwi, you know, those days when we were on campus, they had this band, Classic Handles, remember?
Yes, Classic Handles. Yeah.
We were playing the afternoon jams for us, and also attending to hall weeks, and they were great at the time. And so, locally, I like, of course, I should mention CK Man.
Oh, CK Man.
And those days when and I must not forget Pat Thomas, the Golden Boys. Mm-hmm. But in terms of quality high life, it's Ampadu. But outside bands, the music that I enjoyed those days, growing up, you couldn't miss ABBA.
Yeah.
You couldn't miss Bee Gees. Mm-hmm. You couldn't miss the Commodores.
Yeah.
You couldn't miss Earth, Wind and Fire. Mm-hmm. Right. But of course, if you are talking about dancing steps, certainly you cannot forget Michael Jackson. But in terms of quality music, the lyrics, it is the Commodores. I like some reggae as well, but reggae, my favorite star is Jimmy Cliff and not Bob Marley.
Why not Bob Marley but Jimmy Cliff?
Jimmy Cliff is the originator.
I see.
Jimmy is the originator.
I like Jimmy Cliff too.
Yes.
In fact, I played one of his songs this morning.
Which I
can see clearly now.
I can see clearly now.
Yeah.
Jimmy, the stuff, the lyrics, the harder they come, he who feels it knows it.
Yeah.
You know, many rivers across, Synthetic World.
Yeah.
Do you remember Synthetic World?
I do. I used to have a collection of Jimmy Cliff. We need to be wrapping up.
We should be sharing.
We will share.
But one of my favorites, you know, renditions is Jesus is Love. I don't know. You know that?
Yeah.
By the Commodores.
Yeah.
Right.
We need to be wrapping up, but before we go, this is just the final one. We're not doing politics, but the final one, because a lot of Ghanaians will say, oh, the majority, did he talk about when the E-levy will come to Parliament again? When is it coming to Parliament? When is it coming to the floor of Parliament to be discussed?
You heard me say to somebody that I need to have an engagement with the sponsoring minister.
Yeah.
In fact, as I speak, he's waiting for me.
Okay.
We'll have to have some engagement on it as to what shape to give it. Because don't forget, the E-levy had come to Parliament at the rate of 1.75%. Lately, he climbed down to 1.5. Doesn't have to affect the memorandum. It's a policy decision that was taken. Yeah. If there is a policy shift, it may have to affect the memorandum. If it has to affect the memorandum of the bill, it will then mean that the bill may have to be reintroduced, as the old one may have to be withdrawn for it to be reintroduced. The mechanics we have to think through to see if it has to be relayed or maybe some amendment could be effected. We yet to go through those motions, and if we do, in fact, this morning I sounded the majority leader at the business committee that this week, and we have just today and tomorrow, it will not certainly be taken. Okay. It may come next week, and even next week, if it has to be taken, it will be Thursday, Friday.
Once again, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Winston. I'm on behalf of the team. Do have a lovely evening and keep watching the JoyNews channel.